guys, welcome back to Empowering. So excited to have you with me. We're going to go over some motivating tips for your Monday again, and this is specifically on test taking strategy. First, the strategies that I'm going to cover are can be used for any classes like anatomy, physiology, chemistry, stuff like that, and then I'll give you a few tips that will be specifically for your nursing questions. So let's get right into it. The first tip that I can give you is to listen to yourself and to do what works for you. And what I'm talking about is I had a lot of professors that were telling me, you know, the night before a test or the night before an exam, you need to relax, you need to take a bubble bath, don't study. I had one NCLEX review professor tell me that the week before the NCLEX examination not to study. Guys, listen, you have made it this far if you know what test taking strategy works for you. For me, I knew that that wasn't going to work for me. So I study up until the very last second. Literally, when I'm in the room waiting for the professor to hand out the exam, I have my notes and my book in front of me and I'm still reviewing. So that's what works for me. So I think that's what would work for most people, honestly. The second tip that we're going to go over is to, if you can, have another piece of paper. Some professors will allow you to have a scratch paper. If not, you can use your hand. But what you want to do is as soon as you get the test, before you read the question, cover up the answers. Okay, if you are allowed to write on the exam, you can do this next step. If not, you just have to kind of work with it. If you can, underline each word as you read, so to make sure you read each question very carefully. These test questions and their answers are really meant to confuse you, and the simple twist of one word or another can mean an entirely different thing. So what you want to do is get used to reading every single second. I never finished it, but I once took a speed reading course, and throughout the course they taught you that there's certain words that you just never look at, you just read over. But this reading over can literally mean the night and day as far as the question is concerned. So you want to get in the habit of just underlining every word as you read. If you can't underline, just follow along with your finger. Just make sure you're reading every question. At this point, what you want to do is, with the answer still covered up, you want to think about what the possible answer could be. Hopefully you come up with something. If not, think a little bit more, but usually you have something that'll come to mind. And just write that down on your scratch paper or on the test directly, or if you have to, keep it in mind. And at this point, this is when you actually look at the test answers. So hopefully something matches up directly. It's always fun when that happens. If not, then just try to look for something that kind of fits along what you thought of. Okay, because this is your best resource. It has all of the answers. You just have to kind of extract it from them. Then what you want to do, if you have a test question that you just have no idea what it is, you just want to mark that and come back to it. But when you're doing that, you want to relax, okay? Because when you don't get the answer to something, it can make you really stressed out. Your hands can start sweating, your shoulders can start tensing up, and you're going to be putting yourself in a state where it's even harder to get the answers from. So what you want to do is just take a deep breath in and just do this throughout the test, especially maybe like while you're reading the questions, is to make sure you're breathing very calmly, very deeply, and then you just want to mark it and come back to it. And what I want you to do is to understand that there's many times when you will be going on and 5 questions later, the correct answer will just pop in your head. And it'll happen more often than you think. Another thing that I've noticed is that a lot of the information builds on each other. With anatomy, physiology, with nursing questions, a lot of this information just builds. So it is very quite possible that the answer to that question and the answer to other questions can be actually in the test, just disguised in the form of another answer or in the form of another question. So just be aware of that. I just want to stress again to take deep breaths throughout the questions, because you really want to be as relaxed as possible, because relaxing is going to allow your brain to come up with the answers. because honestly, you probably know them. You've just maybe forgotten, or just need to kind of remind yourself of that. So just come back to it. Now these, for NCLEX style questions, NCLEX style questions are the type of questions that you're going to be seeing from day one in nursing. If not, then you'll be seeing it very soon. These are scenario questions of situations that as a nurse you will see every day. You guys, I'm a nurse now, I've been a nurse for 5 years. I see these types of scenarios all day. And so they are designed to have you go through real life experiences and to select the best answer out of 2, 3, possibly 4 correct answers. There's always one best answer. One thing that you want to focus on is that on the NCLEX examination, you are practicing in a perfect world. Staffing's not an issue, other patients are fine. In fact, maybe you don't have other patients. You just have one patient and you're focusing on this one item, which really is kind of a true life scenario too, because let's just take worst case scenario and you were put in a court of law, and they're not going to ask you what was going on with all of your other patients. They're going to say, and they're going to look at this one patient and what was going on with that one patient. So just putting that out there. You want to think as if you have all the time in the world, that you are just focusing on this one thing and that's it. So there are a thing called RN buzzwords, and you'll probably hear that a lot in school. And these are things that the RN is only allowed to do. And these are things like documenting, calling a doctor, a provider, and I say provider because a lot of times you're working with physician assistants or nurse practitioners. And these are things that cannot be delegated, that the nurse has to do. So if you see an option that says delegate this to the CNA or delegate this to the LPN, that's not correct. Another thing is you always want to look at the ABCs, which is the airway, breathing, and circulation. So if that ever is an option, you may want to consider that, because obviously you need to protect the airway first, and then the breathing, and then the circulation. So if things are life-threatening, you want to deal with those first. There is one exception. If your patient does not have a pulse, your patient is, you found them on the floor, there's no pulse, then the actual, it changes from ABC to CAB. It's circulation, airway, and then breathing. So it's CAB, and that's only when your patient does not have a pulse. So they kind of trip you up with questions like that too. Okay. And in the NCLEX, one thing is that you never leave your patient. So if there's an option that says, leave the patient and go do this, that's wrong. You never leave your patient. And that's true, because if you have an emergent situation, they're going, like, the first question anybody's going to ask, the doctor, the nursing supervisor, when something's happening, they're like, who's the nurse? Who's the nurse? Because the nurse knows the patient better than anybody else. So that you never do leave your patient, even in real life. Most of the questions are multiple choice, and when I say multiple choice, the questions are multiple choice with multiple of the options correct. So you always have to choose the best one, and it's a very difficult way to have questions. There is one other type of questions, and it's select all that apply. That's even harder. So you have something else to look forward to. However, with the select all that apply questions, if I can give you a few tips, usually there's like at least two that are correct. Usually you have like 5 or 6 options, and usually what I've seen is a lot of times they go over disease processes. So like you'll see your patient has pneumonia, what would you expect some signs and symptoms that this patient could be experiencing, and it'll be like select all that apply, and you have to kind of select which ones. In nursing school this doesn't help, but on the NCLEX examination, these are the hardest types of questions that you can get. So if there's one little peace of mind tip that I can give you, if you're seeing a lot of these select that apply questions, you're doing very well. On my NCLEX examination, I remember getting about almost 15 of them. And I knew that that was good, even though these questions were so hard and so stressful. I knew that that was ultimately good, because I knew that that must mean that I'm doing well. And so they wouldn't be giving me hard questions if I wasn't doing that good. They would have been giving me easier questions. So the other tip that I can give you is, guys, you can start on NCLEX style questions right now, right here. I don't care if you haven't started nursing school yet. I don't care if this is your first day in nursing school. I don't care if this is your second year. You've got to get an NCLEX book. I do personally recommend Mosby's Reviews and Rationales. You can find it on Amazon.com. Guys, they're not paying me. I don't work with them. I just personally like their book. They have the easiest to read format, and I also found that they have a really rare and hard to find section on nursing fundamentals, which is usually the starting point in nursing school. So I love you guys. I hope you found this helpful. If so, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and write a comment and let me know if this is helping you or if you have any other questions. So you guys can always reach me at empower.rn@gmail.com. Sorry, that's my old email address, but I still use that one. But you can also reach me at caroline@empowern.com. Alright, I love you guys. Can't wait to see you soon. Bye.